Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto, Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being part of the show. We're going to have a great show for you today. We had an interesting start. The internet went down just for the Wirecast. I don't understand what happened there. I'm not sure. It seems like we got re-triggered twice on Facebook. We got re-triggered twice on all the other networks, but I think we are okay now. Anyway, how are my peeps doing? Hey, let's see. Lee Grant from Montgomery County is in the house. We also have Eric Hayes from Atascocita Kingwood in the house. Bridge MCP from Binghamton, New York in the house. We have AVQ from Brooklyn, New York in the house. We also have Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia in the house. We also have, I'm scrolling down. Bear with me. Yep, it wasn't a crash. It was an internet issue. It wasn't a crash. It was an internet issue. I hope that internet issue is solved. Anyhow, actually, I don't know what it was, to tell you the truth. But anyway, let's get started. Bridge already has a thing for the screen. And the screen, does it look like it's working? Yeah, the screen looks like it's working. I just have things in the wrong window. So let me go ahead and rejigger my windows here. Get in the right place, screen. Everything is just kind of mucked up right now. But the show must go on. The show must go on. Let's get Bridge's stuff in there as soon as I shut this other thing down. I close that ad. We go ahead and bring the chat over here. Yeah, I'm having to rejigger all kind of stuff now. Okay, let's go. We'll start with the meme from Bridge, and the meme says as follows. It says, the full list of Florida Republicans who voted against the FEMA disaster relief funding before Hurricane Helene includes Matt Gaetz, Florida 1, Byron Donalds, Florida 19, Kat Kamak, Florida 13, Aaron Bean, Florida 4, Michael Waltz, Florida 6, Corey Mills, Florida 7, Bill Posse, Florida 8, Gus Bilirakis, Florida 12, Anna Paulina Luna, Florida 13, Laurel Lee, Florida 15, Daniel Webster, Florida 11, and Rick Scott, Senator, abstain. Everybody that's looking at this screen right now, okay? Everybody that is looking at this screen right now, you have a job to do. Florida it just got slammed by Hurricane Helene. She will be slammed likely harder by this new hurricane. A lot of these Republican MAGA politicians like to play games with people's lives. Make sure this list, I'm going to be tweeting this stuff over and over and over again. Make sure they all know that these are the guys that would wish them harm. We have to make it known. These guys voted against the FEMA bill. Bridge, I have a homework for you. Please go ahead and send me a pertinent link that actually shows the bill. Because I want to make sure, I want to write something up on this, and I want to make sure this gets wide distribution. I didn't even think about doing this. That's why I tell you, we have the best audience in the world. Best PDR posse in the world. Bridge, get me some more information, please. Help me out here. I'm taxed with a whole lot of stuff to do. If you get me that, I can write a blog on it tonight and get it out and get it some distribution. Well, we need to do that. Seattle Times, Trump approved California wildfire aid in 2018 only after reviewing Orange County voter data, former official says. And I need to, I read that one. Thank you for the link, brother Rudnin. Hey, Rudnin, send me that link in my Facebook, in my, you always send me stuff in the other way. My direct message, in Messenger. Please send me that link in Messenger. All right, let's see. Let's go from the top now. All right, we start. Para ver, ¿qué va a hacer? USA Today, Hurricane Milton grows explosively stronger with 175 mile per hour winds. The storm now about 700 miles from Florida rapidly strengthened from Category 2 to Category 5 just in a few hours on Monday. That is catastrophic. They hope it lands as a 3 on Florida. I don't know. The water over Florida, especially in the shallows, are a lot warmer than right off of Cuba. So there's a likelihood that I don't know how much weakening it's going to do, but we'll see. Maybe the land mass that it has to, while those bands go over land mass, maybe it'll kill it a bit, we hope. All right, Michael Rudden says Jill Stein would have to look at pardoning January 6 rioters. Speaking on the conservative podcast, Ladies Love Politics, she said, I would have to look more carefully at their actual charges. When I look at January 6, it was dangerous. People broke laws. They should be held accountable for breaking laws. Whether the sentences were reasonable, I would have to dive more into the weeds than I have done. Stein went on. In the big scheme, I see a lot January 6th as being blown up for political reason. Not it was harmless event. It was serious and problematic event, but I really see the two sides as extremely polarized. I know Jill Stein personally. I had lunch with Jill Stein, including some of her salad with habanero peppers in it. She's a nice person, but right now she's a clear and present danger to America. And I'm telling you something, Jill Stein, a rich doctor, this for her is sport. She doesn't have anything to lose. And the same thing goes for Professor Mike. And I like the guy. He's a friend as well. The guy, what's his name? You know who I'm talking about. That's running against. That he's also running as an independent, I believe, or Green Party. I can't remember which one he's running for. But again, these guys are just so self-contained that they don't look at the bigger picture. But guess what, though? Guess what? That statement doesn't hurt Kamala. That statement actually hurts Trump. Because there are people who would like to pardon a lot of those guys, don't want to vote for Trump and don't want to vote for, and will not vote for Kamala. They may vote for Stein. So that may be a lost vote for Trump and not a lost vote for Kamala. All right, let's go ahead. Michael Rudden also said, I'm a green, and this is embarrassing. I refuse to go green. I'm a progressive Democrat. But if you're green, Greens are just Democrats with a passion, progressives with a passion. Those insurrectionists who participated in January 6th should have been charged with sedition and given 10-year prison. I agree. They don't deserve pardons. They require longer jail sentences. I agree. That includes those who have incited January 6th, not just the ones who are at the Capitol. I agree wholeheartedly. Hey, guys, let me see if I have to read anything else real quick, because I got a long video that I cut down from this morning that I want to put out there. Paul Fleming says, this is a civil war that I was speaking of. After Trump's loss, Georgia's GOP state senator began writing bills to revamp local election boards, one county at a time. As a result, in 2021, our reorganization stalled and the election board lost 3 black Democrats. 3 new white Republicans became the majority, including Johnson, who became the chair in 2022. New outlets reported that Johnson had supported the QAnon conspiracy. As long as we have our people in there as well. That's all we got to say. Make sure we have our people in there as well. Okay, let me start the video and then we'll get busy because this was a longer, a longer video that I need to get going. Let's get it done right this minute. Today, I want to start with the article that I brought out called Why is the Working Class So Angry? There is an author, Les Leopold. So he wrote an article titled 135.9 Million Reasons Why the Working Class is So Angry. Then he says, since 1993, 60.2 million workers who had been on the job for at least 3 years have laid off. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, another 75.7 million with less than 3 years tenure have also been let go. In total, that's 135.9 million workers who know all too well the pain and suffering of a major disruption of their employment. Working people understand that the periodic ups and downs of the economy can legitimately lead to job loss. But They also know that in many cases, the reason they lost their job was not mismatches in supply and demand. Rather, their jobs were sacrificed to satisfy out and out corporate greed. I disagree with that sentence. Leopold, I love you, brother, but that's wrong. Most people don't know it. When most people lose their job, the first thing they say, that damn president caused me to lose my job, or he messed up the economy and all of that. That's the first thing that the average American citizens think. That's why Trump can go out right now and say Biden is screwing up the economy, even though under Biden, the unemployment rate went from double digits all the way down to now 4.1%, right? But somehow you can blame the wrong person for it. So Leopold, I understand what he's doing right there, but he's incorrect in believing that most people understand what he wrote next. And here's what he wrote next: private equity and greed. And while he understands it, most people don't. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read his paragraph, and then I'm going to explain in a bit more detail. Private equity and greed. Workers know that when a private equity firm buys up the company at which they work, trouble lies ahead. Just ask the 33,000 workers at Toys R Us who lost their jobs when the fabled company was driven into ground by KKR, a huge private equity company. KKR bought the toy giant for $6 billion in 2005. $5 billion of the purchase price was financed with debt, and KKR put on the Toys R Us which KKR put on Toys R Us books. Then the rape and pillage commenced as Toys R Us costs due to service the debt, pay KKR hefty management fees, and quickly fall behind in competition. Walmart and Amazon, Ali Savarral, writing in the LA Times, wrote, KKR and its partners sold off Toys R Us real estate, pocketed the money, and forced the retailer to lease back its buildings, along with KKR and other firms paid themselves $250 million in management fees and big bonuses to handpick executives right before Toys R Us entered bankruptcy. This deserves a little bit more understanding. When I talk about the difference between capitalism and free enterprise, I'm talking about the difference between a slave-based economy where others do the work and some people just profit from the work, rather than a collective economy where everybody is paid commensurate with what they produce. Meaning a farmer is paid commensurate with the food he produces. A banker is commensurate with the service he provides to the society to manage somebody's money, etc. But there is a class of people, the private equity firm, that has no right to exist because they produce absolutamente nada, nothing. They look at you, they look at a company, and they say, aha, there's a company. How can I take that company and make some money off of it? Let me tell you what they did with Toys R Us. Toys R Us, a profitable company with a lot of assets, buildings, and all of that, stores that they own. They own these things. The company, a successful company. And what do? They say, wait a minute, we can take that company and monetize that company. Wait a minute, guys. This is a private equity firm. It has done nothing to sell toys. It has done nothing to build toys. It has done nothing to service anything in the toy industry. So they come in and they say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy up the stocks of that company, right? I'm a private equity firm. And I am going to then take that company and borrow the money from the banks on that stock. And then, by the way, I'm doing this as Toys R Us, right? So that debt belongs to Toys R Us, right? So what is debt? I got an influx of monies. That's debt, right? And it's backed by what? Assets. But again, the assets are there, right? And those of us who did that transaction take a hefty fee. We are managing this buyout. Remember, they've produced no toys, they've sold no toys, they've done nothing. They just went into that company. They have capital. They use their capital to start the process of owning the company, leveraging the company. Leveraging means turning the company's assets into debt. It is like if you own your house outright you can leverage your house by saying, I will take out a loan on my house. I still live in the house. I have a loan. I pay back some money on a monthly basis, but I have a whole bunch of cash I can go blow on vacations and cars and all of that as I just pay back that loan. They leverage that company. They leverage the employees of that company. They extract fees. Again, what are these fees? Millions of dollars just to do this transaction that should not have occurred in the first place. Millions of dollars they charge the company to teach it how to borrow money on the assets that that company has already accumulated. But it goes a bit further than that. They then sells the buildings and assets that the company owns to, maybe a REIT, a reinvestment, a real estate investment trust or something like that. They may sell the buildings to these other financial entities. And then Toys R Us is then forced to pay rent for the building it once owned. So whoever bought all those buildings from Toys R Us and gave them cash, now they're getting their cash back in the form of rents. It's capitalism at its max. That is legal. And that is what caused the demise of Toys R Us. And whenever you hear about a company that seemingly had been doing very well for decades and decades and decades, and suddenly they're going bankrupt, and it's not like the people stop buying a whole lot of toys. If you go ahead and look at these companies' books, they're within 10% up and down, 10% up and down. They don't deserve to be out of business. All those employees do not deserve to be gone, but that's what it does to you. But now you don't have the news media telling you this in detail. They're telling you, their profits have gone down because their expenses have gone out of control. Their expenses went out of control because they're now paying rent for the buildings they once owned. They're paying management fees for the loans that this new owner of these stock took out on the business, and then somehow they want to cut employee wages, etc. It's a transfer of wealth from the worker, the working class, to the Trump class. And everybody talks about, Trump is a businessman, a great businessman. He's a great businessman. Are you kidding me? These are the concept. These are the things that they do to the average working American citizen. And you are always just a cog, a pawn in the wheel. So those who are supporting, we need to run our country like a business. Are you kidding me? If we ever did that, understand that you're but a commodity. Understand what these corporations do. It's not that Egberto is anti-corporations and anti-biz. I love business. I have businesses. But what we're talking about is thievery, what we call legal fraud. Because we use the mechanism of capitalism, which by design, they're following the rules of capitalism, because everything is about capital. That's why whenever we apply a tax, whenever we apply a service or whatever, the first thing you will hear people ask is, how will that affect business? The first thing that should be asked is, how does that affect the well-being of the American population? How does that affect someone having a more prosperous life? How does that make your life more enjoyable? Business is supposed to work at the behest of humanity, not the other way around. But capitalism is by force, by design, something that was made to do what again? To service capital and those who own capital. So it isn't the popular thing to go against capitalism, because the first thing people say is, you damn communist, which I'm definitely not. I'm a free enterpriser. I believe in free enterprise. I believe in everybody being able to have access to success. I believe in everybody being able to own their own businesses. I believe everybody should be able to be profitable and make a profit on what they do. What I don't believe in is a system that turns you into capital, fracture you into bits and pieces, and selling you like the slave we have been made to be. And if you doubt it, whenever you hear about income inequality and wealth disparity, it didn't happen by accident. It is a concrete design of our economic system. We've tried to mitigate it many times by creating progressive tax rates that as you get more money, you're taxed more, by ensuring that the profits from companies in the past couldn't be used to do things like stock buybacks that affect employees. We used to do those things to take the evil out of capitalism, or to take some of the evil out of capitalism. We tried it. And it worked for some time between Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, the New Deal, the Great Society, and all these programs that were created to take the malice out of what capitalism does, because it has no heart by design, right? It's all about, if you take a look at the definition, the efficient allocation of resources, which is false, first of all, because look at the healthcare system. The efficient allocation of resources doesn't mean having many entities in there at all. In fact, that makes it inefficient. But that's what it says. And the God of capitalism said, forget about any social programs. Forget about the environment. Your sole goal as executives in a capitalist company is the maximization of profits for the shareholder. No other job do you have. And that eventually results in monopoly. And why does that eventually result in monopoly? Because if you are maximizing the profits of your entities, of your shareholders, etc., eventually you try to eat up everything that is competing to minimize or to limit the profits of your shareholders. Continuing with the article, the kind of looting by private equity has since the 1980s happened thousands of times in all sectors of our economy, leading to the needless loss of millions of jobs. Researchers writing for the Becker-Friedman Institute at the University of Chicago have found that on average, employment shrinks by 13% when a private equity firm buys a public company, as Forbes notes. All too often, when private equity professionals tout their cost-cutting strategies, they do not mention that cost-cutting means firing people and taking away their livelihoods. Yes, they want to make more, which is what they do. That's the design of that. A private equity corporation, that is their mission. Their mission isn't to do good for society. Their mission isn't to do good for humanity. Their mission is the people who own this equity firm will go out there and hunt. They hunt companies they can buy on the cheap, leverage it, sell it off, and dump employees as best they can to take that money. That's the design. That is not saying that is a byproduct. That is the design of a private equity company. They're doing it in healthcare right now. Look around your neighborhood, whether you're in Ohio, whether you are in North Carolina, whether you are in Georgia, Texas, whatever. You see all these pop-up emergency rooms starting up. You see all these little clinics coming up. And have you been to one of them and see what they charge and why they charge and how they charge? These are private equity firms buying up all of these things, putting doctors to work for them, etc. These doctors are now making menial salaries, one employee, and then they are cleaning up on the insurance companies, which ultimately you pay for as well. This privatization and framing it as something good for you is the biggest lie. And by you not understanding, and when I say you, I'm talking about those who are learning this today, not understand, will have you vote against your own interest. You know why Donald Trump gets a pass, folks? You know why the media, in as much as people like to say, look how the mainstream media is treating Donald Trump, he doesn't get the treatment that he deserves for the harm that they've done. You notice when Donald Trump told Hillary Clinton, I don't pay taxes because I am smart? Remember that? He's right. Because again, taxes are for us. These guys are thieves. That's what he's telling you. What he's also telling you is, I don't have to pay back loans to bank. I go ahead and tell a bank, give me a loan. Here's the asset that I may control a piece of. I write it up this way. I give it a value, whatever value I want to give it. And you give me something on it. It's the system. It's capitalism. It's how it works. And if you play the game, if you went to school, if you went to, let's say, the business school, Harvard Business School, or or the business. These are things that you learn, and you tend to believe that there's something honest about it. You tend to believe that there may be something rewarding about it, but it is nothing more than legalized theft and antiseptic slavery. Free enterprise is what should reign. And until we understand these features, we will never get ahead. Stock buybacks and greed. Workers are also learning that when hedge funds buy up companies' stock and demand stock buybacks, there's job trouble ahead. Just ask the 32,000 workers in Bed Bath & Beyond. Women listening to my show right now, you guys remember Bed Bath & Beyond, right? A lot of people shop there. My wife used to love her Bed Bath & Beyond and get all those sweet things and towels and all of that. That company has been always doing fine, but it got those sharks saw it and said, we can make some money there. All right. A stock buyback, which was essentially illegal until 1982, is a form of stock manipulation. A company uses its funds or borrows money to go into the market place and buy up its own shares of stock. By doing so, the number of shares in circulation goes down while the earnings per share go up. The stock price rises even though no new value was added to the company. It's just a matter of manipulating. It is not these guys providing values. They are the ones who people revere. Hey, look at that rich venture capitalist. Hey, look at that rich stock fund holder. Hey, look at that rich private equity firm manager. They revere these people. And these people are no better than Lucifer, because their job is to take away money from those who earned it, those who worked for it, and pocket it by using financial instruments to do so. There is no good value that comes out of this. But this is capitalism. This is Trump. This is what they're talking about. When you hear Kamala talk about an opportunity economy, it is, she won't say this. She would come out and say, I am a capitalist, but I want to make sure it's an opportunity economy. They are mutually exclusive. They are mutually exclusive. They cannot coexist. They cannot coexist. Once you put the brakes on capitalism, what you get is free enterprise in the good direction or fascism in the bad direction. And what she's doing is cloaking capitalism with free enterprise and saying, let's create an opportunity economy. And that is what all of us should want. All of us who work for corporations, we are at the behest at whatever private equity firm wants to come in and say, wait a minute, I can make $1 by leveraging that company. I can make $1 by selling that company. I can make $1 by laying off those workers, because even as they're needed, even as they're the ones producing, I can make $1. Folks, I'm coming to the callers in a minute. Every first Saturday of the month, I have a program for my listeners, for the PDR Politics Done Right Posse, called Ask Egberto Anything. It's a Zoom call, and folks who sign up for it, we talk, on Zoom, video if you want to. If you don't want, turn your camera off, and we have questions. And a few conservatives came on, and one specifically, I think he's in the chat right now, kind of gave me a hard time because he got offended when I when I confronted them with willful ignorance and certain phrases that I use. And I try to say, and one of my progressive listeners says, Egberto, while you're right, I understand what you're saying, but maybe you need to find a better way to say it. When I'm speaking specifically to my right-wing brothers and sisters, because you want to be heard, you want to be listened to, you want them to listen to you. And one of them said, yeah, if you're hitting this up, I'm not really listening, we're fighting, right? And I agree with them. On the program, I did tell them, you know what, I try to do that. Hell, I wrote the book, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors. But I said, you know what, I'm only human. We are all just humans. And sometimes you get so frustrated with people allowing themselves to be used, people allowing themselves to be gullible, that sometimes you just go bat, crazy in your rhetoric. So I'm going to try to modify some of that rhetoric. They want us to remain ignorant on these issues. They do. And this goes to everybody, so I can say it. It's not just to my right wingers. So let's not be willfully ignorant. I have been ignorant of a lot of things myself. When I was a sexist, I was ignorant. When I was a homophobe, I was ignorant. When I learned how ignorant I was, I made the change and I atoned. And in the process, I was no longer ignorant. As well, I could have stayed even knowing the truth. I could have stayed being a sexist. Even knowing the truth, I could have stayed being a homophobe. But that would then make me willfully ignorant. And there's something dangerous. There's something pathetic about being willfully ignorant for whatever reason it is that you choose willful ignorance. There are certain things that are black and white. There are certain things that are debatable. I can debate whether we want small government or big government or right-sized government. We can have a valid discussion. That's a gray area. If you want less services for the government, you're a little government person. You live by the constraints that you've given. If I want larger government and that's what we vote for, we built a constraint. That isn't wrong or right. That is preference. But there are certain things that are black and white that are not debatable, that are provable. And that is where we need to sit, my brothers and sisters.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand.
So absolutely so, folks. And yes, Carl Cox, I am live. Peggy Lopez says, sounds just like me this morning at the Department of Motor Vehicles for the fourth time, attempting to renew my driver's license. I hear you, girlfriend. I hear you. How you doing, Peggy Lopez from I think Los Angeles, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. E2247 points out 266 persons each day are wounded, and most of them that will be final sum killed in this demonic US-UK-Israel genocide Israel launched 12 months ago. Let me tell you something. I've not watched a lot of TV this morning. I went to the cooking channel. I then went to look at a couple other channels, because I understood what today was going to be. While I mourn for the 1,300 people killed with the terrorist attack by Hamas in Israel, to me it's sort of obscene that we are spending the amount of time, or I should put it that way. To me, it's obscene that we are not spending commensurate time with the 41,000 people, innocent people, that Netanyahu murdered, that created genocide on. And I think until we start to look at the humanity on all sides, my blood pressure goes up as we only talk about the humanity of those Israelis who were murdered. I think we should be talking about the humanity of absolutely every single person who has died. All right, folks, I have another video. If anybody else have something for me to say, let me know. But here's the other video. And this one was Donna Brazil, how great she handled Reince Priebus yesterday. Once again, Donna Brazil has exceeded one's expectation on one of the Sunday morning show in the way she challenged the former Republican National Committee chair, Reince Priebus. What she did is confronted the lies that they were pre-programmed to tell on all these national networks. If you watch this week, if you watch CNN's White House, if you watch all of them, this week, Meet the Press, any one of them, they are pre-programmed with the same message to lie. And Donna Brazil did not allow it this time around. And very often she challenges it, but she was forceful in her challenge in as much as she was civil in the way she really let Reince Priebus have it. Because Republicans have been out there simply misinforming their poor audience about what's really going on. And this will materially affect them all. And I think Donna did the right thing. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
I got to say something to you. I come out of the civil rights movement. Nonviolence was our touchstone. We made change by going out there protesting because we wanted to change our country to make sure that everybody was included. Democrats, and I've been a Democrat since I was 18 years old, although I voted once or twice for a Republican or two. There's no, and I mean this, there's no place for violent rhetoric. And when you threaten election workers, when you threaten to execute your quote-unquote former Joint Chief of Staff, Mr. Milley, when you mock Nancy Pelosi's husband being beaten by a hammer, I don't want to be lectured by Eric Trump. Who in the hell is Eric Trump saying Democrats? No, there's no place for violence of any kind. And this is something that needs to be said. I was there with you, brother, Mr. Priebus. I was there with you today that Mr. Trump had that attempted assassination. The Biden campaign put down all of their ads just like they did during COVID. And they say, we are going to stop this. We need both political parties, both leaders. Do not go out there and blame Haitians. Do not go out there and blame immigrants or migrants. That is the rhetoric we hear every day. And if you cannot... You cannot say that Joe Biden won this election. Joe Biden won the election. Then you should not.
The show is not a monologue, Donna.
No, but it is
the fact of the matter is,
people have
it's the floodgate of lies. Okay? And the fact of the matter is, this is a former president and a son that, number one, came extremely close to losing his life and losing his father. Okay, he's been called a threat to democracy from the very beginning. They got rid of a sitting president to fulfill their message that he's a threat to democracy. In order to save this country, they had a sitting president step down, put in a vice president in the summer. This is how they feel about it, and this is how everyone on the Democratic Party feels about it. So don't sit here and act like holier than thou. That somehow you have a corner on this message because you don't.
And you don't.
And that's why you're not winning. That's why Harris is behind, and that's why she's going to lose. People aren't buying the rhetoric.
She's not behind.
People are not buying the rhetoric.
We're not buying the lies.
Why can't you simply say that blaming Democrats for the association?
I would not blame Democrats.
Just say it's wrong.
I just said it, okay? But it's also wrong to paint the president of the United States, President Trump, as the threat to democracy that's going to end the United States of America. What does that do to people's heads when you do that? What does that do to millions, hundreds of millions of people in America?
What does that do to legal immigrants?
Guys,
what does it do to legal immigrants when you know you're lying? What does it do to kids who are trying to go to school?
The president of the United States practically getting killed.
And we all condemn that.
You're hitting 20 different topics.
The Democrats condemn that. But the lies, the floodgate of lies must stop. What lies?
Too often, because the left tends to be on these programs much more civil than the right, it always seemed that the right has the upper hand in as much as they're lying most of the times. And in order to keep civility, many times they refuse to interrupt them, correct them, point out all the lies that they're taking. I'm tired of sending all these tweets during these programs where we're saying, why didn't you call them out for saying line number 1, line number 2, line number 3, line number 4? But what we saw Donna Brazile do there was encapsulate the entire thing and laid it out so much so that Reince Priebus had to say, hey, this is not a monologue here. I got to get my chance to continue my lies. And that he continued, but Donna was ready and Donna Brazile responded as appropriate. That is what we have to do for the next few days left in this election. You have to confront the evil. You have to confront the lies, and you have to do that civilly, but with conviction. Because when people go into that voting booth, all those seeds are going to be planted in their heads. And you know which seeds usually grow? The ones that have the right fertilizer. You be the fertilizer. You be the water. You be the sunshine. And that will metastasize in their brains and come to fruition in that voting booth. Many believe it's solely about turnout. the ground game, etc. That is true. We have to get the ground game going. And what is ground game? Many times people hear, what's the ground game? Ground game is the amount of people you're touching physically. Ground game is the amount of people you're constantly calling and reminding them to go to vote. Ground game is where you have an interaction between your precincts and your community and going out and doing things. That is what it's going to take in what they claim to be a close election. Now, look, I'm still of the belief that there are a whole lot of people not being counted by the polls right now. And if those people come out and vote, I don't think it's a close election. All those new registrations, all those new people between the last 4 years that actually came up to voting age, I think those people are going to make a huge difference. But you know what? We cannot take any chances. So Donna Brazile, first of all, we got to do what Donna did, confront those who are lying. 2, engage everybody at the place that they're at. And 3, make sure to constantly encourage those folks to go vote early. And on those places that don't have early voting on voting day, be there for them to help them vote, be there for them to answer questions on how they should decide their vote. But I tell you what, folks, Donna Brazile is a good template that we should follow as far as calling these folks out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it.
Absolutely so. Donna Brazile did exactly what she needed to do. Got one more video, and it's going to be just around the time to end. So I got to get it started right away. So let's go ahead and get it busy. I want you to listen to this video. I'm going to save my narrative for the end, but it has to do with the unmet expectation of some from Kamala Harris. And I think what Maya Riley says at the end of that clip is one of the most important statements that anyone has said about what's expected of Kamala Harris. Listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
She got Taylor Swift. That's a big deal, right? For a certain slice of the electorate, young females. She needs to go after young men in a way that it's just not resonating.
Okay, right. I agree with you. It's amazing the success Donald Trump has had with young white male, right? From the, we watched that Vaughn interview a few weeks ago.
Young black males too, by the way.
Saying, oh my goodness, what a buffoon Donald Trump made of him. No, he didn't. That was a successful, and when you said successful, it's incredibly successful how he's peeling them off. And part of it is they don't, that group of people don't feel like Democrats are speaking to them.
Yes, that is a problem. But again, how is Donald Trump speaking to them? I mean, he's selling racism. He's peddling scapegoating. He's peddling xenophobia. He's not offering anything. If this Republican Party had policies that would help non-millionaires, they'd never shut up about them. And they don't. They don't have any policy.
But it clearly is saying something to them that are listening to. And I don't think it's just those obviously very negative things.
Oh, I'm Lord of the Dude Bros. Everyone's trying to be Joe Rogan now.
Well, that's something that they seem to be responding to. And it's not inherently evil, but it's also not something that the Democrats are offering. Like, Democrats aren't talking to young men, or haven't been for the last 5 or 10 years very much. The response to it is much more stark than I would have expected, but not entirely surprising. And
but hold on, I'm with Steve here, because just by us minimizing them, that they're Joe Rogan wannabe dude bros, doesn't mean that their votes don't count.
No, I didn't say that.
But I'm just saying,
who's going to be the Lord of young men,
right? In a world, I believe, I'm a parent of one, so I believe that they feel like in a universe where inclusivity is so important, which it is, they're not only not seen, but they're attacked. And I know that's not the way Democrats feel, but this is an opportunity to go speak to them and say, I know you care about the economy. I know you care about reproductive rights. Yes, but we need to see Democrats start to do that.
Yes, because they're the party that's fighting for these young men, because young men care about Roe v. Wade. Young men care about student loan debt forgiveness. Young men care about weed being decriminalized at the federal level. They have a lot to offer, and they're not making the case.
Then why is it not working at all?
Exactly right.
Well, they're also, they do feel put upon by the rapid social changes that are taking place and the fear of being canceled for having a particular point of view that is maybe more traditional than we would expect from 20-year-old white voice, right? There's almost I wouldn't call it a 1950s style feel to what they're going through, but they're challenged by some of the changes that are taking place on campus in their social circles. And they do feel to a certain extent as if they're targeted. I
talked to a group of kids from Rutgers this week. We're going to air it next week. And they said that students don't feel like they can express views if they even border on conservative views, because in a young, super progressive world, they're going to get, immediately people are going to say, you're a macho pig, you're xenophobic, you're the worst, blah, blah, blah. Toxic, and so you're toxic. And again, I'm not saying these boys are the greatest, but I am saying that she wants every vote that counts. And there's a way to think about every demographic out there and say, how do we bring them in?
So here's the problem. I agree. A true democracy means we're having the debates we need to have. We're understanding the experiences of all our people, and anyone vying for anybody's vote is able to figure out how to talk to all of those demographics. And that includes young men who are white.
And black.
And everything. I mean, my point is here that I think we have to acknowledge that there's something going on in this culture that is deeply unhealthy and dangerous. And unless it's very difficult to put it all simply on a politician running for office of what some of this undercurrent is. I mean, the reality of rape culture is quite real. Now, when I say rape culture, I don't mean everybody out here who's a young man on a college campus is raping someone, but the reality of sexual violence and other forms of violence are quite real. The reality of what's happening with the attacks on having programs that say we have to find a way to understand the experiences of others, to read each other's histories and know them is quite real. And the only reason I'm having trouble with this conversation is not the premise that we should not vilify or the premise that we shouldn't be having a conversation that pulls young white men into the conversation. It's that it is also fundamentally a problem in our democracy that we are this deeply divided, and that the solace that some seek is in the permission to be something other than accepting of the hard conversations on all sides. But in particular, what does it mean to say that Kamala Harris, who has, in my calculation, worked so hard to be a unifying candidate, is still constantly blamed for falling short on something that society itself is not fixing?
True.
Now, before I address what she said directly, I was born in Cocosolo Hospital in Colón, Panama. I am a Panamanian born on the Canal Zone, and my citizenship at birth is Panamanian. Senator John McCain, who ran for president of the United States, was born in the same hospital that I was born in, Cocosolo, Colón, Panama. Okay? He was born of American parents on the Canal Zone. He is a natural born citizen because his parents were Americans. Senator Ted Cruz, was born in Calgary in Canada. Okay? Calgary, Alberta, Canada. His father was a Cuban. His mother was an American. Ted Cruz is considered as well a natural born American citizen. Why? Because at least one of his parents was a born American. When President Barack Obama started his run, Donald Trump and others created this birther movement to question his birth certificate and his place of birth, which was, according to the birth certificate, Hawaii. He was born to an American woman out of Kansas and a Kenyan father. So here's the deal. The media allowed that story to go on. The media allowed that story to have plausibility, as if questioning the birth certificate or the place of birth, even though many of the people were so whatever that they didn't realize that Hawaii was actually a state of the United States. But still, they try to make an issue as, was this birth certificate real? Was this birth certificate whatever? He was really born in Kenya. He was really born in Indonesia. It didn't really matter where he was born because of who his mother was. So no matter what happened, even if the birth certificate was fraudulent, even if he was born in Kenya, Indonesia, or wherever, he was a natural born American citizen because his mother was an American. And still the mainstream media allowed that possibility that he wasn't qualified constitutionally to run for the presidency cauterized in people's minds that somehow there's a possible, it was plausible that he was not a legitimate candidate. They allowed that to happen. And the same thing that happened with Obama now on a different issue is happening with Kamala Harris. This time attracting men, specifically white men feeling aggrieved because she's not speaking to them. Men feeling as if they're being left behind because of what Trump is telling them. All fallacies that are given traction, given a platform once again by the mainstream media. One of the reasons for polarization in this country is, in fact, the mainstream media. We can go ahead and say, well, it is Trump that is misleading people. It is the right wing that's misleading people. It is the Heritage Foundation that's misleading people. It's the corporatocracy that's misleading people. But if we have something called the fourth estate, the media, it is their responsibility to protect the populace and report what's true and what isn't. It is not true that Obama possibly could not be eligible for the president. It's not true that Kamala Harris is responsible for the figment of imagination of certain men who think they are aggrieved, when the reality is, if you look at every single metric, they're not. But how will they really know if they will go ahead and follow the metrics given by Trump? They themselves have a little problems in their life and not realize that Trump itself is the genesis of their problems. The mainstream media too often has failed, and they have failed because of the structure of how they perform and also their many different allies that they consider have to work with. They're complicit too often in the story. What Maya Riley said at the end was prescient. We actually have a cancer in our society. We have a cancer in our government. We have a cancer in our people that needs eradicating. And that Kamala Harris cannot eradicate that. It has to be the work of all of us, including the mainstream media. One of the reasons I'm doing what I do with the progressive media independently is also to work on that severe metastasizing cancer that unless we get rid of, we will die as a nation.
We spend a lot of time.
People start to realize that die as a nation is not a hyperbole. I mean, nations die from, in these times, nations die from within. Carl Cox says Trump and his cult members can dish out lies but can't handle the truth. Look, we had a discussion, like I mentioned in the earlier view on Ask Egberto Anything. I don't know, when you constantly hear lies, it is disconcerting. I mean, when Eric comes out and he says, the governor of Florida or the governor of Georgia had to call FEMA twice. That's not true, and it's probably not true. The governor said otherwise. The president called him before he called the governor. The president called him first. He couldn't take the call, and he called him back. I mean, the lies again. When they said, okay, be careful how you talk to folks. They're not listening. When your verbiage start to match the verbiage of your master, your Führer, that is dangerous. When you start to parrot the lies that this guy talks about, it's dangerous. And it does, for those of you who are mimicking the lies that he's talking about, it doesn't help you. And Peggy Lopez is right. The cancer is the white male patriarchy. She's absolutely right. And, and until we get that eradicated, we are in for a lot. It's one of the reasons why Kamala has to be careful in the way she runs. Because the patriarchy, and let me just say something that's interesting, Peggy Lopez. The white male patriarchy is not just white males. And when I say white males, I'm not, I'm talking about the particular ones that are white supremacists. But it is also the black males that decide to form part of that patriarchy, the Asian males that decide to form part of that patriarchy. You want to find a whole lot of them? Get onto TikTok. And you will see that you have pastors and all these guys. They are vested in that patriarchy. So white male patriarchy is a titular title. That's a titular title. But the reality, it is a large part a male thing. Large part a male thing. You know, so let's be very, very, very clear. So again, no, there's nothing proven in that link because it didn't happen. It didn't happen. He was contacted first by the president, period. And he admitted that in his news conference that he gave, the first news conference that he gave. He said it. Don't try to reinvent history. All right. Folks, please support the program. We're at 4:01. I need to get out of here, but please support the program. And how can you do that? Please go to politicsdoneright.com/support. politicsdoneright.com/support. And let me put that link on the page. That gives you all the different options that you have to support the program. But what I'd like to ask many of you is those of you who have the wherewithal to, please become subscribers, paid subscribers to our newsletter. It's just a cup of coffee. A paid subscriber of our newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Okay, the show is over and I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.